The teaser for John Wick, Chapter 4 hints at John's biggest personal issue. The teaser for John Wick 4 debuted just in time for San Diego Comic-Con, showing a glimpse of the showdown with the high table that John and the Bowery King are set to embark upon in the film. John Wick's Chapter 4 has a very deep meaning for the story of its title character. In John Wick Chapter 4, the legendary assassin John Wick is fighting to escape the high table's grip for good, and finds himself in his most harrowing war yet. With his old friend Kane forced to hunt John to save his daughter, John learns through Winston that he might just be able to overcome the high table and their chosen representative, the Marquis de Gramont, for good through a high table duel. John Wick 4 looks set to further show his weapons-based skills with his wielding of a set of nunchaku. The weapon itself is a fitting one in this regard, being so closely associated with Bruce Lee. In his founding of Jeet Kune Do and philosophy of the nature of water, Lee believed that adaptability to any opponent or situation was the highest combat virtue of martial arts. Lee's famed quote about this boils his philosophy down to absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, add what is essentially your own, and it's one that both John Wick and the John Wick martial arts ensemble franchise have internalized. At the beginning of John Wick, Chapter 4, John is already a legend in the assassin culture as the mythical Baba Yaga, but has spent the events of the past 3 movies essentially in a constant battle. With enemies on all sides and his efforts to permanently retire ruined, John has had to come to terms with his life and legacy since the death of his wife Helen and the dog she left him, Daisy. John's arc in John Wick, Chapter 4 is about his decision to take control of his legacy and define it for himself, rather than let it be determined by the high table. The Marquis de Gramont, by contrast, sees John's legacy as a means to uplift his own. Like many assassins to precede him, the glory of being the man to finally slay the Baba Yaga is what motivates the Marquis de Gramont. He also wants to make the accomplishment as grandiose as possible and extends his mission to destroying the New York Continental and killing Sharon to send a message that John's entire legacy, including his friends and allies, is being eliminated. The emphasis John Wick, Chapter 4 places on legacy and history is also evident in the setting the movie takes place. John Wick, Chapter 4 uses classic artwork and buildings with great history behind them as its backdrop, and often even repurposes them to fit in the world of the John Wick universe. The Eiffel Tower is a prime example, housing a broadcast station where the ever-increasing bounty on John's head is announced to assassins pursuing him. John and Kane's pre-duel meeting in a cathedral is another such example, the 2 men reminiscing about their lives and friendship hours before heading into a duel that they know only one of them can survive. With other settings like Paris's Arc de Triomphe and Sacré-Cœur as key settings for its action scenes, John Wick, Chapter 4, uses the great historicity of its environments to highlight the history of John himself as reaching its long incoming pinnacle. This also goes even deeper with John and Kane's respective roles in the story. When John and Kane meet for their duel at the Sacré-Cœur, John has made a crucial decision about his own life and legacy. After being mortally wounded by Kane, John shoots and kills the Marquis de Gramont, who is attempting to claim the coup de grace. After sharing some final words with Kane and Winston, John dies on the steps, having chosen to do so to cement his legacy on his terms. John knows that Kane is in a terrible position, and essentially sacrifices himself to help Kane, while also taking the opportunity to take out the Marquis de Gramont to repair the high table's corruption. John is not the only one making such big choices either, with the blind Kane revealing that he voluntarily gave his eyes to the high table, indicating he has a similar perspective as John of maintaining his say in his legacy. Moreover, after killing Shimazu Koji in their sword battle to get to John, Kane is fully aware that his daughter Akira will come to seek vengeance on him, showing his comprehension that his choice to battle Koji would have its consequences. Subscribe to our channel Celeb Splash so that you don't miss any future updates. When Winston and the Bowery King visit John's grave in the movie's final scene, John's tombstone says a lot about the legacy he has left behind. John's tombstone reads John Wick, loving husband, per the request he made to Winston earlier in the film. John had managed to taste a normal life with Helen for the 5 years of his retirement, and that life is what has been trying to reclaim ever since the John Wick franchise began. In John Wick, Chapter 4's ending scene, he finally does. The ending of John Wick, Chapter 4, takes an unexpected twist when John dies after his duel with Kane. But there is a lot more going on than meets the eye. Underneath its breathtaking stunts and action sequences, John Wick, Chapter 4 is about John's ultimate goal of defining his legacy for himself. As has been the case with the John Wick franchise's storytelling previously, this is also a lot more layered than it appears to the naked eye. There was an odd moment at the beginning of the film when Wick was in Osaka, Japan, hiding at the Continental Hotel. When the representatives from the high table are sent to find Wick, triggering a massive fight sequence, the Japanese hitmen all were armed with katanas, throwing stars, bows and arrows, and nunchucks, while every other hitman had a gun. Despite having seen the previous films, it had been quite some time since I'd seen them all and was worried I wouldn't remember some of the background necessary for this film. John Wick, Chapter 4 did a good job with story building and reminding the viewer of the basics you needed to know to be able to follow the plot. When my dad dragged me to the first John Wick film, I never would have expected that I would develop such a love and enjoyment for the franchise. The series follows the titular character John Wick, portrayed by Keanu Reeves, a hitman forced out of retirement, as he navigates his obligations as a member of the secret organization the High Table while playing by his own rules that don't necessarily align with the High Table's expectations. The movie was quintessentially wicked. It wasn't trying to do anything unexpected or out of the box for the series as a whole. There was constant, intense action, unbelievable fight scenes, and underlying emotion. I don't think it was trying to tell a hyper-intellectual story, which is fine. Not every film needs to make you think, and you can just enjoy watching it. What was interesting about the film was how it interspersed comedy with intense action. A John Wick fight scene is nothing short of intense. I think the film may have a gunshot sound quota where they can't go more than 5 minutes without a gun discharging. If it had been straight violence throughout, I fear John Wick, Chapter 4, would have completely lost me. But there was a level of humor in the film that I feel balanced out the action. The comedy didn't feel inappropriate either. It was the type of dry, blunt humor that's not trying to be funny. The movie wrapped up the whole story perfectly with a poetic ending. Throughout every film, the viewer is presented with the idea that there is no beating the High Table, and Wick will be running from it until he dies. This is emphasized by Wick's bounty constantly growing across both the third and fourth films. Wick being able to leave the High Table despite dying only moments after was satisfying he beat them, based on what we think is worthy. Subscribe to our Celeb Splash so that you don't miss any future updates. If you have more about it, please feel free to share them with us. Share them in the comments below and wait for our interesting topics coming soon. If you think they deserve to be on this list, share your opinion in the comments below.